What helped you go from, hey, I'm losing an incredible person, to we're better positioned because we have these processes in place?
I'm not good at processes. I'm good at vision. And I think as a leader and an entrepreneur, you have to understand your strengths, right? Are you a visionary or are you a systems person? It took time because I think the painful approach was you're just kind of like the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So like I'm kind of going through hiring people, onboarding, like all these different things, and it's not working until you finally realize, wait, it's not them, it's me. How do you not feel selfish when maybe you're at the gym and here I'm in construction? She said, it's selfish of you not to be at the gym, because if you, as a leader of your organization, aren't in a position where your health and fitness and your mental state are where they should be at the top of your game, essentially, other people suffer.
Welcome to the Everyday Leader Podcast. Leadership is a choice. Join me, Matt, and my co-hosts Drew and Tate each episode as we break down how to lead powerfully in your family, team, and organization.
Welcome to another episode of the Everyday Leader Podcast. Super excited to have Brad Leavitt here today. And I've got a chance to be on his podcast recently. He's got an incredible business, builds the most beautiful homes in all of Arizona. And just excited to have him with us today to share some of the lessons he's learned throughout his life, throughout his career, throughout his business. So Brad, thanks for your time this morning.
No, I'm excited to be on. Thank you, Drew.
Yeah. So before we dive into you, Brad, our favorite question to ask all of our guests is how do you define leadership, Brad?
Wow. I've always thought that question is very interesting for a few reasons, Drew. I mean, when you look at leadership, I think there's a lot of different styles, and maybe I take the athletic approach. You speak to coaches, maybe in the NFL, for example, and they say, we have some leaders that are very outspoken, right? And they're very, they're very authoritative. They lead by, they're boisterous in some ways. And then you have some that are very quiet, right? They lead in a very like humble way. They lead in a very passive way in a way, but they're the type of people that are there, first ones there, last ones to leave, but they quietly do their job and they inspire people differently. I think that all of us have different ways to be inspired by leadership. When I look at leadership, I think, maybe instead of giving it a true definition, I look at it where, do you see people not where they are? Who can they become? Right. I think a true leader is not looking at Drew where you are now, but maybe seeing the potential that Drew has. Now, with leadership comes responsibility in the sense that I have to put together a plan, a path, a scenario where now Drew can live up to that. And whether it's, helping you see that picture and visual, whether it's, I don't want to say dang old carrot, but putting goals and, items that you can work towards, and processes and systems that you can, achieve your full potential. I think the best leaders that I've had in my life or mentors are specifically those. They didn't see me who I was. They saw who I could become, and they believed in me, and they put the energy and effort and allowed me to finally see that for myself and become that person.
It's so good, Brad. So a leader sees what you can become, and then they have a responsibility to help you get there. If I had to summarize what I heard.
Yeah, essentially. And it's funny because I think it works in all aspects of life, right? I think that works with your kids. Yeah. I think it works in religious scenarios. I think it works, in employment scenarios, and just, I've seen that come true. And, in sports too, we have a leadership meeting every week, and this is my executive committee. So with my company, we have essentially a C-suite board, right, of different departments, and we meet. And in that, in that meeting, we were speaking about certain people, and I'll give one good example. So my director of operations, Spencer, he was in the field, right? And he was incredible in the field. He was running one of our most complicated projects. And I'm sitting there thinking like, I'm wasting talent, and I think a leader has to see that, whether it's athletics or academics or it's, in your professional. And I'm like, this is someone that should be elevated. And he didn't feel maybe he was in a position of leadership to do that and now be promoted to maybe a project manager or director role. But as they see that, you paint the vision and you help him get there. Now he's like one of our most key people, and completely respecting the organization. And he's changed our company from organization and processes. But, it really takes you as a leader to really understand your people, your business, the emotion, um, and understand how they need to get to that position. And I think leaders they instill greatness in others. It's that same adage that everywhere is better because you were there. And as a leader, like, people are better, the environment's better, the company's better because you were there, not in an egotistical way, just in a service, listening, taking mindful notes.
Yeah. Yeah. And the great thing about that example you're giving too, Brad, is it's like, it's not, it's not the title. You can do that. You can make everyone better regardless of whether or not you are the business owner or have the title in the organization. Like, anyone could do that.
hmm
So
But you
cool. Well,
inspire them
Brad,
to be great. Sorry, I'm going long
yeah,
winded with you, Drew.
go,
But
go,
yeah,
go, go ahead. Go ahead. Good stuff.
there's someone in town that just related to my business as a contractor. We have a lot of overlapping, trade partners and subcontractors that work for us. And you hear from them, they're like, certain companies have a different aura. Like the people are different, the culture's different, the way that they lead. And they feel that, like, people recognize that, and they're more drawn to that, right? As opposed to someone coming in and just screaming at you, Drew, like, this is your job, get it done. Yeah, that can be leadership in some aspects, but is it leadership that really elevates you as an individual?
Yeah. Yeah. Every once in a while, it's good for somebody to light me up a little bit, I've found. And most of the time, that's not what works best for me. So, well, Brad, tell a little bit for our listener who doesn't know you, or your story. Tell us a little bit about your background and what's gotten you to where you are today with an incredible company building beautiful homes. Like, have you always been doing this? What's your background?
Well, apparently I'm a glutton for punishment, Drew, because I came into construction. So, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? No, but kidding aside, I grew up, in construction. My dad, my uncles, my grandfather were electricians. And so I grew up very blue collar, tools on. I worked as an electrician, um, through high school and my early adult years. And realized that I actually liked it. I mean, there were hard days, trust me. And it's tough sometimes to have your bags on and be in the field and, crawling under crawl spaces in attics. But, bottom line is I grew to love it. I went to college. I did construction management, and I had some experience for 6 years out of college working for a few different companies. Specifically, I was able to work on a really significant hotel resort that's here in Paradise Valley and the Mauna Lucia on Lincoln and Tatum, which really changed my opinion of, construction and, and really the industry, and was fortunate to start my company in 2013 with some help from a former client of mine, Dave Clark. And, is some painful years, but over the last 13 years, anyone that's followed AFT construction, they've seen our growth. They've seen the product we've put out there. And we've been fortunate to work on some of the most amazing projects in Phoenix. And we work in the high-end luxury market. So most people know us as, luxury construction from custom homes with some amazing amenities. And there's never a dull moment. I'll tell you that. There's something different every day, a new challenge every morning I wake up. So
Yeah. No, it's incredible. If you don't follow their Instagram, you ought to just to dream of the next house you want to build.
right.
Awesome stuff, Brad. Well, what about like for you building this company, leading this company? Um, I mean, tell us about that journey. You said 13 years? Has it been easy to build it to what it is? Like, what's that path look like?
It's incredibly painful. I kind of tease a little bit about, glutton for punishment. I think construction just in general has its own challenges, right? You look at, some similarities in when it's in the food industry, probably, you're dealing with cost of materials or food or produce, you're dealing with high labor and you have to turn a profit, and it's tough. Like, there's risk. I mean, the hardest things are mitigating, managing risk and trying to lower your risk and, understand your value. And then how does that value put you in a position where you can maybe demand, and I don't even want to say demand, but at least get, a revenue that's respective to the product you're putting out there. But at the same time, you're in a market where bidding is very important and low bid. And so it's this highly complex market. Well, you have to, the biggest challenge is not only, just building these complex projects and worrying about life safety and making sure people don't get hurt on the job sites. I mean, keep in mind, some of our projects have, 30, 60-foot falls, on these big projects that, someone, you do something incorrectly, it's, that decision can end someone's life. And so you think about life safety and how that plays a role, that risk. But I think to answer your question, Drew, it goes back to your leadership question. I think what's hard in this industry is people. And to create an environment with, turnover is always going to be prevalent in every company, personal things people are going through. Maybe they have an opportunity to make more money as they get more experience, right? And so that's going to happen. But do you have systems in place to work through retention? Do you have a culture built where you can keep key people? Do you, as that company evolves, and, some of my challenges as our company evolved, well, with that, there's growing pains, right? Do we have the skill set? Do we have the right people on the boat or on the bus? Are they in the right seat? And so I think this goes back to leadership. And what's hard about construction is there's this fine balance, right, Drew, that you have to be very assertive and authoritative in some ways, because squeaky wheel gets the grease. So you have to, don't confuse my kindness with weakness. But at the same time, there has to be this soft side, right? And understanding and empathy. So you're trying to balance kind of a forceful nature with empathy. And it's a hard thing. It's a hard balance for people to do. And at the same time, at the back, you have a client that's like high demand of results and timing and schedule and money and everything else. So to answer that, yeah, I think it comes with a lot of problems. Building a company, being an entrepreneur comes with a lot of things you just don't know. And probably the blessing is you didn't know that going in, or else you wouldn't start a company.
Yeah. Yeah. If you had to give advice to the you 13 years ago starting the business, or maybe we've got a lot of our listeners are men in the middle of entrepreneurship. But if they were just getting started, or maybe they're in the middle of one of those hard seasons, like what would be some of the advice you'd give that younger you, or give that, the man that's or woman that's, hey, I'm starting this and it's hard, and I'm struggling to deal with all the stuff you just you just talked about.
I think entrepreneurship's a lonely island, right? I mean, most of these battles you're fighting alone, especially if you're a sole entrepreneur, which in construction is pretty common, a lot of small companies. And so I think there's a lot of value in building a network of people that, are running the same business in a way, to bounce ideas off, to bounce challenges, to bounce a lot of things off. And that's kind of twofold. I think I would have spent a little bit more time networking just to have a good resource of people that could have helped me navigate through some of these unknown waters, right? As you're kind of navigating through. But I think if I were to go back, not only just building a network, I think I would have spent a little bit more time early on systems and organization and process. And with that, there's an element to really understanding the financial side and cash flow. And yes, in construction, in any business, there is time where you have to build value where, look, I can't come into a job day one and charge cost plus, say, 30%, but it may be cost plus 10 at the beginning, and then you can work up to a different percentage. But point being is you still have to understand cash flow. And really my example for you, Drew, when I talk about systems and processes, this is what I learned painfully early on. I was in a position where I had someone who meant a lot to me that, was my trainer essentially, and taught me out when I was out of college, and really knows construction, super talented. And I was finally in a position that I could bring that person on, right? And hire that person. And they came on and they only lasted 3 months. And it wasn't because they weren't qualified. It wasn't because they didn't know what they were doing. It's because I didn't have systems in place and they were frustrated. And so you can't just bring people, kick them off the pier and hope they swim. And I wish early on as a business owner, I would have understood the value of having onboarding, of having systems and organization and protocol, because then I wouldn't have had some of that early turnover, and probably some of those key people I would not have lost.
Yeah, I love that. In fact, I like to say if a business isn't growing, usually it's a leadership issue or a systems and process issue, which you could probably also put under leadership.
Yeah. Yep.
What, like getting that in place, those systems and processes, was that something you just had to figure out? Was that bringing in the right person to help you do that? What helped you go from, hey, I'm losing an incredible person to like, hey, now we've got some of this stuff in place and we're better positioned because we have these processes in place?
It's a great question. I think this goes back to not that I needed a business coach, but I wish I would have understood this aspect too. Is I'm not good at processes. I'm good at vision. And I think as a leader and an entrepreneur, you have to understand your strengths, right? Are you a visionary and can you build that aspect, or are you a systems person? And that goes back to my example of Spencer, that, Spencer was with me and he's incredible. Like, he's great at building systems and operations. And then I'm great on the vision and I'm great on the strategies and how we get there.
Yeah. And did you recognize that right away? Did that take some time to realize, like, I've got to have somebody that helps me do that? Like,
Yeah, it's one of those things that it took time, because I think the painful approach was, you're just kind of like the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So like I'm kind of going through hiring people, onboarding, like all these different things, and it's not working until you finally realize, wait, it's not them, it's me. like I got to fix this. I got to fix the company. I got to have a placeholder for them. I got to have them understand what this role is. And although building a custom home, you're building a prototype. Like, every project they build is a prototype. It's never been built, and they're highly complex. But even if it's a prototype and complex, there's still SOP, there's still standing operating procedures. And again, this goes back to, that element where, had I had maybe different resource group, some people, some mentors, because at this point, when I kind of was hitting my head against the wall, Drew, two things were happening. One, I moved Spencer into the role that he was in. But number two, I was part of a mastermind group. And one of the builders, who had been building for 45 years, actually out of Connecticut, sent me a 150-page SOP manual he had built for 40 years. And, it's stuff like that I was able to edit for my organization. But, having kind of those two, it's like they clicked. Like, this is what you do. Drew, where were you to teach me this, day one? Instead, it was, year 7. So.
Right. No, that's awesome. I just thinking as you're sharing some of that, we've got a local builder in the Gila Valley. His name's Craig Bloomfield, amazing man. And he was sharing about how a lot of his successes just come from hiring people smarter than him, working with others, realizing I don't know it all, like, and then putting people in a position to help him succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Just it's always fun hearing the same kind of correlation for people. And
But that's why it's important, Drew. If I interrupt you, like, what's interesting is,
no, go ahead.
I think one of for any listener listening, no matter your business, and I found tremendous value that, yes, there's a lot of value for me to network with other builders, right? They understand my business, they're in it, but it's been very important for me to network with other business owners in other fields, in other industries, because not that we become snowblind, but look, construction people are dinosaurs. Like, this is the way I've done it. This is how you do it. Like, it's just, we're very slow to evolve, unlike other industries. And so there's a lot of application from marketing and everything else that help other businesses, that help our business, that we can learn from others.
Well, you kind of brought up what I was actually wanting to go right into next. Is you just talked about the importance of networking, whether that's networking with others in the same field and trade as you, or different. And I think there's sometimes this feeling of like, well, I can't go talk to the guy doing the same thing as me because we're competing and we can't help each other. It doesn't sound like that's been your experience, Brad.
No, it's not. I think there's some truth to that. Here locally, for example, if I'm in Phoenix, there are some builders that would never call me back, right? They're not going to give me time of day. Sure. Some of them will to an extent, right? They're not going to give me their entire recipe and, their billing structure. But they're going to help me in some ways. But where the value is part of my mastermind, for example. We have builders in California and Texas and Boston, and these are non-competing markets. Like, the thing with construction, it's really hard for me to just go to Dallas and build a home, because I don't have suppliers, subcontractors. You're there for, year, 2 years. Like, you have to build relationships. And so, you can build relationships in other markets where you can become more personal, and they can share stuff that you definitely would not get, from your local chapter.
Yeah. No, when I was just out of college, I was in the insurance and financial services space, and we move and we go to go to church, and one of the first men I meet, he's another insurance agent in town, and I'm young, and I remember saying to him like, "Well, I guess we're competition," and I just remember him just like he's like, "Oh, Drew, like if you ever need anything, just reach out. Like happy to help. There's plenty to go around for everybody." And then like he, in a lot of ways, he became a mentor for me for a few years, even though were in some ways competing with one another. And yeah, I've just found that sometimes that you can look around your field and find someone a step or two ahead of you, and they're often willing to share, willing to help. Not all of them, right? Some of them you won't call you back or don't want to share the trade secrets.
But it's
But I
that
found there's a
mentality
lot.
of abundance. Like you said,
Yeah,
there's some with a mentality of abundance and not scarcity. And there's one builder here, Rod Collum, I'll give him credit. And he's the one that told me to get in the mastermind group. There's a lot of things that he gave me. He gave me some documents that he didn't need to do. And same thing. Some people have the understanding that even to this day, Rod's helped me. I've never competed against him once. And we're both in Scottsdale. You know what I mean? And that just goes to show you, even for the example of your insurance company, that there is blessings in helping and mentoring others, and vice versa.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've had the opportunity to do some of that too.
Yeah, a lot. So
What's
we started a few things. Every quarter we meet with 40 different builders here, and we have a topic for each discussion. Each quarter, and we sit in round tables and we discuss. And these are big things, like operations and profitability, and insurance and safety and contracts and marketing, social media. And then I started with a group of others who have some partners in it, the Contractor Coalition Summit. And every 6 months we hold this event, at a different city. This fall will be in Charlotte. We just hosted one in Denver, and builders can come. And we have a group of 5 builders, who run the event, and all of us are in different markets around the country, and we all run different business models. And we share all of that, even from a pricing, to give people the understanding. So yeah, to help give back, like someone like you, Drew, if you're like, hey, I want to start a construction company, you could attend this event, and I can tell you in 3 days, you're going to learn more than I did in 10 years, So it's
amazing.
it's one of those values that we just believe in the industry. We know how hard it is, and we want to inspire that next generation, because we've lost a lot of people over the last 50 years in construction. It's coming back, but we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I feel like at least my generation growing up as a millennial, it was like, you got to go get an education so you don't end up in construction.
I love
And
that
it's
you
like,
said that. Yeah.
and it's funny because like most of the guys my age I know that are just crushing it, not all of them, but most of them that are just doing extremely successful, got into the trades, got into construction, got into service-based businesses. Some of them never went to college, and they're just doing extremely well right now. So
it's so funny you say that, because everyone I know in the service industry or service business or in the trades, because I'm a general contractor, just being open to your audience. If I could do it over, I'd go into the trades. And so they've all done very well. And I remember telling someone in high school, I was going to college for construction, and they're like, you're an idiot. You go to college for construction? Like, that's what you do when you can't, finish high school. It's like, oh, how the tables have turned, like if only we would have known, Drew. But
yeah, no, I don't know. I just think it's
so funny
hilarious.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I heard growing up, and the reality has been the complete opposite. So
we're indoctrinated, by college, all this debt. So
right, yeah, and in fact, it's like, I don't know. The more well, we could probably go way off on this path, but
yeah,
I'm like, what's the point of college for most people nowadays if it's not a specialized skill set you're learning? But yeah, no, that's funny. Well, tell me, like, what has that done for you? Like, kind of with this idea of leadership and like turning around, mentoring, serving others. What have you found? Like, what's been the draw to do that? Why have you? I mean, it sounds like you've had people that have mentored you or that have helped you. Why do you now turn around and do the same thing?
there's actually 2 parts of this question, Drew, or 2 answers. I think there's definitely an element of paying it forward. Um, I could give a lot of examples, but one of the earliest examples I had is I had a mentor and he said, generosity precedes prosperity. And he was the most generous person that I'd ever met. And he was prosperous. And I think prosperity is an interesting term because yes, maybe there's people associate that with financial stability in a way. But I think prosperous has to do with people that are in your corner that believe in you, that would give you opportunity, networking. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Yes, there's financial, but what I found is some of the most successful people I met are some of the most generous, right? And, you know, when you have mentors, and one of my main mentors, I mean, this is someone that could have rode off in the sunset, bought a private jet, done whatever he wanted. And instead, in his as he has cancer in his dying years, he's investing in people. Going back to your leadership, like seeing people and giving them opportunities to see who they can become. And so I think there's a responsibility that I felt just having some of those people in my life from a young age. And I think there's a pay it forward. But what's interesting, what I've learned in the generosity and call it pay it back, is anyone that's taught something like I know you do. You host events, Drew, and as you speak publicly, as you have a podcast, when you're studying a certain topic, you get a lot from that, right? Like you kind of go in depth on certain things, and it stands out more. And my point being is that what I've found in instructing others about questions they have and things I've learned, it instills that in me because sometimes I forget. It gives me more confidence when I'm standing in front of a client and the client's maybe pushing back, or I'm in a position where I do have to, speak authoritatively on something. And so what I found is that mentorship reinstills business practices and ideologies and reminds me of things maybe where I'm shortfalling as a company or as a leader, and things I'm telling someone, hey, Drew, you need to do this for your business. And then I'm like, well, dang, I don't know if I'm really doing this right now either. I got to go back, and kind
Right.
of look at my process and make sure I'm still doing that. So I found, yeah, there is something about building that energy, that positive energy and karma out there. But I think a lot of it has to do with we become better at our craft as we work with others too.
Yeah. Some really good points there, Brad. How did you say it? Generosity
Precedes prosperity.
before
Yeah. Generosity precedes prosperity.
generosity
And it's something
precedes
I tell my
prosperity.
kids. Yeah. I tell my kids that all the time. And again, that generosity means different things at different chapters of your life.
Yeah.
Maybe early on it's time, it's service, it's dedication, it's goodwill, right? But maybe as you become more financially established, maybe there's a financial realm to that generosity, right? And helping people or giving them opportunities or whatever it may be.
Yeah. No, I've just seen as I pour into people, even if it's not in a business relationship, it always comes back to bless me more than the cost of the help or the service I gave someone previously. And I like what you said too, Brad, about just like when you teach, lead, coach, mentor somebody else, like it actually helps you level up too.
Mm-hmm.
Selfishly, that's one thing I love about it is I feel like it keeps me sharp, and I believe in doing what I say and practicing what I preach. And so I found if I'm going to tell someone, hey, this is how you get better at this, it makes me look at myself and say, hey, am I actually doing this too? Am I practicing this? It always serves as a reminder to me. Um, and yeah, well, if I to kind of change gears a little bit and before we wrap up, Brad, one of the things we talk a lot on here too is just about the importance of leading yourself before you can lead others. What have you done personally that's helped you become a better leader, a better business owner in your life? Like what have you had to figure out personally that's come and helped you professionally?
I think there's a lot of there's a lot of examples that we could speak a long time on. I think a quick answer, not to make this a physical thing, because I'll answer this in some of the other like kind of maybe spiritual or emotional or other leadership things. But I had a guest on my podcast, and you know she's really big on um, the mental health and, side of things, and how a lot of us, there's a lot of pressure in life. There's a lot of pressure in families, a lot of pressure in business. And it's easy to let go of things that should be a priority in us, which primarily is our health. And, I asked her the question, I said, um, how do you not feel selfish when maybe you're at the gym, in the morning, and here I'm in construction, and, it's like everyone is calling and texting and, all this stuff. And she said, it's selfish of you not to be at the gym. Um, and really what she means is, because if you, as a leader of your organization, aren't in a position where your health and fitness and your mental state are in that acute, and where it should be at the top of your game, essentially, um, other people suffer, and so I think, to answer that question, as you look at whatever your spirituality is, whatever your belief system is, whatever your physical things are, to always be working to improve that. And I've, whether it be different conferences I've attended, leadership conferences, self-help, whether it's, different fitness things or boot camps, I've found that, throughout, especially the last 5 years, just being open. I had a stroke 3 years ago. And when I had a stroke, it was something that, I, if I was not at my house, most likely if I was traveling on the road by myself, I would either not be here today or with some serious damage. Right. And luckily it was, my family heard me fall. I was at the hospital right away. And although there were some complications at the time, they were able to find it fast enough. So I think that, it's really important that we look at health in all things, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And, those things are really important that we all work on and have continued to work on. And it'll just allow you to be, better at what you do.
Brad, how did that? I imagine. I mean, you're not that much older than me, and that's pretty young age to have a stroke. How what did that do? How did that change things for you going through that experience?
I was 42 when it happened, 6 kids and running a business, 20 employees. And I realized there were things in my life that were out of balance, and I had to hit the reset button. And I wish that I could stand here today and be like, oh, my life's, and I remember the doctor saying you need less stress. I'm like, okay, like, I have 6 kids. I run a construction business. Like, that's just not, but I think in fairness, yeah, the stress and anxiety don't go away. But I think there are, examples of changes that I made that allowed me to be in a state where I could perform better for myself and those around me. And so I made a lot of changes for my health and diet and exercise, a lot of changes. I mean, I've put on 30 pounds and, in a healthy way since that stroke, working really hard at it and going to the gym every day and, making weights part of my life. I've worked on, relationship with my children, and I've worked on different processes with my company, and I'm not perfect. There's changes I'm making every day. There's mistakes I'm still making, but I've made conscious efforts of understanding that I may not be here tomorrow. And so I need to make the best decisions to put, if that does happen, that, everyone in a good place if something were to happen.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Has that helped the business doing all of those things?
Yeah, it has. And honestly, it's crazy because as I sit here today, we've been through some tough times. I mean, look, the last 18 months of construction has been really hard. Interest rates have not come down. Material prices are still high. We know where fuel's at. Clients are skeptical of the industry or their money out there in the market. It's just most builders across the country are slow. Now, there's a lot of areas of construction, data centers and commercial that are blowing up. There's a ton of AI needs. But when you look at home building specifically, a lot of home builders are struggling. So I think that what that did is it put me in a position where I would have had a hard time navigating probably the last 18 months, with some of my employees being cherry picked, to competitors with, the slow downturn in revenue and projects that were canceled that were supposed to go that you were counting on. But I think the stroke helped me really put my life in balance where now you can weather that storm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's such great perspective too. It's easy to have a challenge or experience like that, and woe is me. And amazing to see it as a, hey, this has helped, this has built me, this has built my business.
Yeah, it's, sometimes you have these reset points in life, and it could be a lot of things. It could be, death of a family member. It could be a physical thing. It could be divorce. It could be, going bankrupt. I mean, there's a lot of things that make you look back and say, what could I have done better? What can I change, move forward? Because the reality is, look, I can't change the beginning of my story, but I can change the ending.
Hmm. Yeah, love that. Well, last couple questions. One, who's been, and you've kind of alluded to a couple so far, but who's someone that's been a leader to you in your mind, in your life, and why do you view them as a leader?
Going back to an example with Dave Clark, this was someone at probably the lowest point of my life, believed in me and gave me a chance when he didn't have to. And if he didn't, AFT wouldn't be here. The homes we build, a lot of the employees that have built great livings for their family. I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for him. And I think one of the things that I learned wasn't just, again, seeing people who they are and who they can become and the assets that people are, where he always taught me that, on your balance sheet, as you look at the balance sheet or you look at employees, they're assets, not liabilities. A lot of us understand, that cash calls, you have to do payroll, but those are assets and treat them as such. But what I really learned for him, this is someone that battled with a really severe form of cancer for 10 years and, would go through this battle of chemo and, hitting that reset button over and over as it would come back. And you're just exhausted by, the 10th time that you're going through the same procedure, trying to get it out of your system, and just never complained, never did. Always smiled, said, hey, I got this. I'm going to get through it. And again, it goes back to that leadership, painting the vision. This is what we're going to do. This is where we're going. This is where I'm going. And I'm sure internally didn't feel that way all the time. Probably his, significant other, his wife, Kirsten, or others he was probably venting to. But, he did a really good job outside of his small circle of instilling confidence in others, despite, going through those hardships. And I just felt like in many ways, that was just a great example of, a leader to me.
Yeah. Brad, for those that are listening today, where can they follow you, get more of you? I know you've got the Brad Leavitt podcast as one place they can go to. Where else would you send our listeners if they wanted to follow more of what you're up to?
Yeah, so they can look me up on LinkedIn, Brad Leavitt. They can go to the Brad Leavitt podcast. And then other than that, if you go anything related to AFT construction, so aftconstruction.com is our website, Instagram, AFT_construction, probably says Brad Leavitt too on there, Facebook, TikTok. It's pretty easy to find us. Look up Brad Leavitt AFT construction and something will come up. Just Google it, right?
Awesome. And then last question for you, Brad. Before we end today, how do you want to be remembered?
Legacy is really important to me. I think I want to be remembered as, someone that always tried their best. Like I truly care about people, and I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. Don't get me wrong. But I think in general, people that know me know I have a good heart and I have good intentions. And I always try to make people or situations better than I found them.
Awesome. Love that. Well, Brad, thanks again for your time today. A lot of great points, a lot of great little nuggets. This would be a good one to go back and listen to again and hear all the different things that you shared, and a lot of things we could probably spend an hour on just on one little part of the conversation we've had today. So thanks for your time today, and appreciate you coming on, and to our listener, today's the day.
Thanks for joining us on the Everyday Leader podcast. If you're ready to take your leadership journey even further, subscribe to our weekly newsletter for more insights and practical tips. And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram to stay a part of our growing community. Just follow the links in the show notes. If this episode impacted you, please help us spread the word and share the link with a friend from wherever you're listening.